G'day, how you going? It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I just woke up and couldn't get back to sleep, so I just had a shower, made myself a sleepy time chamomile tea from Boulder, Colorado. It's still way too hot. And I was just thinking about that scene, Tony Montana from Scarface, where he's like, "You need people like me. You need someone to be the bad guy." And also thinking about the Joker, Heath Ledger's performance in The Dark Knight, whereby he said that he's a necessary force. He was created by mankind, and it made me think of Israel, how they are mainly in existence because of the American Empire, which is a result of the British Empire, which is a result of private banking wars, but also of the will of the people of the British Empire. Now, the reason why people have animosity towards the IDF, the Israel Defense Force, and some of the Israel cultural issues with Jewish Americans is mainly to do with consent, in terms of they welcomed in what made them powerful. Like, for example, the pharmaceutical industry, the pornography industry, and the degenerate entertainment from Hollywood, and or just the agglomeration of violence, and the eugenics program, the culling of the Western European race, and through Cupid, what's that dating website? Something to do with Cupid dating match. How the algorithms are literally orchestrated to cull off whites matching whites. They don't want white people breeding. That's partially because a lot of white people, they kind of don't deserve to breed. This sounds harsh, but there's a lot of white trash out there. And also because I think maybe we're harder to control than other races. But then again, there's just elements of consent. Like, I thought of Al Capone as well. How Al Capone, similar to Tony Montana, Scarface, or similar to Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker, like Israel, is they were only powerful because somebody wanted to drink. Like Al Capone, he wouldn't have been a big shot gangster if people didn't like to lower their IQ and have their senses dulled through getting drunk on a regular basis outside of ceremonial settings. It was the lust for the darkness that made him powerful. So you can just think that if you just killed Al Capone, then people would stop drinking. It wasn't him, it'd be some other schmuck. Like in the Middle East, there's a hell of a lot of cash, hell of a lot of actual assets that are real, things that are real. There's oil. There's a hell of a lot of money. There's actual trillionaires. I don't know why people say Elon Musk is the world's richest man when there are actual multi-trillionaires in the Middle East. And there's people with so much money that these little boys like Elon Musk just seem like ants. And it's also a big threat, Sharia law, because that has actual practical, tangible laws that prohibit degenerate behavior. So in theory, the Muslim religion is a threat to demonic entities, because they mainly have their control through vices. So just the basic thing of getting drunk, and the legality of pornography, and sex outside of wedlock, those things can literally cause a downfall of a nation. So obviously, like the foreign policies of Israel in terms of their war crimes, just targeting civilians and stopping aid, and like retaliation that is 1,000 times what the October 7th attack, which was nebulous. It's very suspicious, as Charlie Kirk said, that they were able to breach the border and rampage in that off-duty military rave in Israel without intervention. That was raised a few eyebrows. But yeah, overall, I think most evil has to be invited in. And so there is select few people from Jewish American background who do control very serious industries, like Jeffrey Epstein, and who was a spy for the IDF, and the leaders of the pharmaceutical industry, so things like oxytocin and the hormone blockers for children, and Pornhub, all these things that really corrupt and literally stab in the throat a nation, are controlled by Jewish Americans. And I don't think that speaks to Jewish people as a whole. Overall, it's a very different story. Like, I know people of Jewish background. They are very hardworking, kind, family-oriented people that just have their roast chicken and salad every night. You know, they worked every day of their lives. They did manual labor jobs. Great people. Never, did drugs or smoked. They just had a couple drinks. Never cheated on their wives. Maybe did a couple of, slightly dodgy things in order to make some money when they were young. But, hey, look, no one's perfect. No one. But yeah, obviously I'm not condoning what IDF has done to Palestine or all the surrounding countries, but there is a connection between the United States military-industrial complex and this behavior. Like, I was in America in December 2023, and there's a lot of people there who have money. Like, there's still a lot of working class people that just seem really fat. And I'm like, how do they have such a rich of a country? It's because United States is the king of the world. And they're the kings of the world because they're the world police. And someone has to, I get it. And in the past, America's a very Christian country, good people. They deserve to be on top. But there is a big downside of the fact that being the big boys for so long is that they've become decadent. They've become hedonistic, a lot of them. And so there is a demand for these degenerate activities like pornography and prescription drugs. They are in demand. And it's also in demand to continue America's reign. And that means to encourage war. The economy and entire political structure thrives and requires hot combat. Look at their budget for the military, and Israel, just like Ukraine, they have both got ties to the US in terms of they are needed for their dodgy behavior. They are like the Tony Montanas of Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Eastern Europe is also a very interesting place. The Slavic people, which are a race, Ukrainians, Russians, Belarusians, Lithuanians, very high IQ, traditionally a very Orthodox Christian country, meaning they're a little hard to control because it's harder for them to worship celebrities. They're not as agreeable as Anglo-Saxons and Nordics, like myself, who traditionally were the most trusting, and so we're kind of the easiest to corrupt with basic vices. You know, just like in America, how they legalized cannabis and the promotion of pornography has almost crippled a lot of the working middle class population, and toxic feminism as well. Like that's really affected Anglo-Saxon Germanics, Celtics a lot more than the Slavs. The Slavs in Russia and Ukraine and also the Middle Easterners, the Arabs, they are less susceptible to that, because I don't know why exactly, but they just haven't been as infiltrated by feminism. I think it's because they have a stronger relationship with Christ. Like obviously the Western countries, Germany, they believed that they were better than other people. They thought they had superior bloodlines, and that doesn't sound very Jesus-like. Like every country has their own good points and bad points, and the reason why the German Empire lost and they got massacred during World War II, I believe is because they turned their back on God, and they got too big for their boots. And look, it was very complicated, but end of the day, Germany lost, and I think it's because they turned their back on Christ. Now, I haven't been a lifelong Christian. I'm only starting to get into it, but I really like the rules. I like the rules. They seem practical, and I find them comforting. And they also seem to play their hand in history very, very carefully in terms of what happens to empires when they follow a certain trend. And yeah, I think if the German military in the late 1930s, they screwed up, they went on a downward hill because of the fact that you don't just kill people for no reason. Like you have to be critical about your wartime strategies. You can't be too much in pride. You know, you have to wait. You don't invade Russia in the winter. Like you don't target people. Like obviously there were Jewish people who were creating like transgender promotion and pornography, and they were creating debts out of usury. But who took the debts? It was the Germanics. You know, and England, Britain had their sticky paws in the Jewish banking money, the Rothschild money. That's the reason why the British Empire, in part, did so well. It's because they took the loans, they took the usury. Same as the Dutch. Amsterdam, it's not only the biggest port in Europe because the Dutch are just so freaking powerful and intelligent. It's also because they took the dirty money, they took the usury. And so just to summarize, there's always the choice to consent evil, and there's always ramifications of that down the track. So yes, a lot of problems from Jewish Americans: the pornography, the pharmaceutical industry, the war crimes in the Middle East, the degenerate content from Hollywood, the feminism, the birth control pill, the hormone blockers, the usury, you know, the banking crimes. But end of the day, it takes two to tango. There is a issue of consent. Like vampires, they have to be invited in the house. They don't just come in and start sucking your blood just because they feel like it. you're obviously somewhat inviting them in. And people, they are sometimes at the mercy of their state. Like, I think about what happened in Thailand in 2004 with the tidal wave, how a lot of people died, and as a new Christian, I'm like, what happened to those people? Obviously, every single one of them can't have been a bad person for like God to justify their death. But sometimes you're married into your people. Like if your country is doing things like promoting sex changes for sex work, then sometimes you will be judged by your crew's weakest links. And so perhaps some of them were killed because of the policies of the culture and the state as a whole. That's just a theory. You need people like me.